Everybody uses this plugin, and it's one of the most basics in Ableton and in any other DAW. This is the most important one, but a lot of people don't know all the different functions that this plugin does. So here we go. What's in stock? EQ8. In Ableton, you have several types of EQ, but the EQ8 is one of the go-tos for any type of EQ that you're going to be doing on Ableton. EQ8 has a lot of different functions, a lot of different options, and a lot of secret zones that a lot of people don't know about. And what I want to do is just show you guys a little bit the best of the EQ and how I kind of use it in some tips and tricks on EQing some of your songs. So let's go straight for it. Let's pull out the EQ. And when I say EQ, I mean EQ8. I'm not going to be saying EQ8 all the time, but you know what I mean. So this is how the EQ looks like in Ableton. So nothing complicated, nothing crazy. It's a basic EQ. So I have a nice little graph here that shows you the frequency spectrum of the general audio that is going through, which you can use to start off. I mean, it's good to see a little bit where the frequencies are and kind of like filter through that, but never EQ something based on the graph. Always EQ by your ears, trust what you're hearing, and that's what's gonna make you unique from all the different producers and all the different artists out there, is your style of mixing and what sounds good to you. So if people tell you to cut the lows at like 100 hertz and then you just automatically cut the lows every single time, no, you gotta kind of listen to it, make sure that it's the right fit for the song, and just trust your ears on it. So you can go up to 8 points in 8 different locations on where we can play around with our EQ. So every time you select one of the points, I'm gonna call them points, I'm not really sure what it's called. Let's go for number 1. You can see it right here, and you can select what type of filter you would want. So it could either be a harsh high pass, or it could be a harsh low pass. You can go for a bell, you can go for a shelf. All of these types of filters to help you EQ the sounds that you really want to control. You can turn these points on and off by just selecting this little blue button underneath. And once you've selected a point, all of these functions go to that one point. So you can control your frequency with this knob, the gain, how high and how low you want it to be, and the Q is how precise or how steep the incline you want it to be. For example, here I'm on a shelf, so you can really see that incline going crazy. But if I go with a bell, for example, and I raise this up a little bit, you can see how fine and how wide that bell is. So this is super good to be able to be more precise in the EQ that you are doing. So you can either control the Q from here, and these 2 other settings, the gain and the frequency, you can just control by moving the point directly on the graph if you want. So you can do that on every single one of the points. You can go all the way up to 8 points. Now on this side of the graph is where we get a little bit more complicated, and it's a little bit more interesting. So these little headphones allow you to isolate that one specific frequency so you can listen to what you're modifying. For example, here, if I raise this point up, I'm gonna only be listening to that what's on the 3 right there going around, right? On the bottom you have your mode, so either stereo, which controls the entire frequency of the stereo signal. You can go left to right, so you have the left channel that I'm controlling right now. I move it for the right channel, so your right ear you can EQ it a specific way, your left ear you can EQ it another way. Then you also have a really cool function, which is mid-side. So this controls your mono section, so whatever is mono in that track. So for example, if you want to control the bass, or if you want to make a synth a little bit more wide, you can take down the mid-range right here, raise the Q. I'm going to get a little bit more details about that. And then your stereo signal, you can just boost that stereo signal, and that will make everything sound a little bit wider. So this function is super important and really cool. Scale is going to allow you to, whatever modifications you've done on the EQ, you can increase it by so much and you can reduce it by so much. Instead of, for example, if I have a bunch of points here and I have a lot of things going on in my EQ, and I want to see how it sounds with a little more extreme settings, instead of going into each individual point and raising the gain, I can just scale it up and all of my points are going to be increased, or scale it down to lower it a little bit and have the reverse effect. So all the modifications that I've done, if I wanted to boost the highs, it's gonna get lowered, etc. So yeah, this is pretty cool, and I don't use it that often, but I'm gonna start using it a little bit more. And then of course you have the gain of the outside of the EQ. So now let me show you some examples on some techniques to make it some cool EQ stuff. So first thing I pulled out is a sample from one of my sample packs. Let's listen to it right here, soloed. Take off the metronome. So just a basic guitar loop, right? Now what I want to do is I'm going to use the headphone section and kind of filter sweep and sweep around and find the frequencies and the sounds that just are not pleasant and turn them down. So that's a basic mixing technique that a lot of mixing engineers use, just to kind of sweep through the sound and the frequency spectrum to find points that just sound bad and lower them, or points that sound good and raise them. So how I do it, I click that headphone section. I'm gonna raise up the number 3, and we're just gonna start sweeping around. To be a little more precise, we're gonna raise the Q, because I only wanna find like specific frequencies that might sound a little bit harsh to the ear, and let's listen to it. So right there you can hear some kind of resonance going on right there. So I've selected it, I've heard it, I've picked it up, and now I'm going to lower the gain so that I can kind of cut that out. And then we're going to add another point, and we're going to do the same and try to find another section. So raise the gain all the way up, raise the Q as well to make it a little bit more precise, and find a second little spot. And then you do that all the way through, and just make sure to find every single resonant, or just the ones that are really extreme that you want to lower. And that's a good way to control your sound and to make it sound a little bit better. It's very subtle, but you do notice the difference. Now, a second technique that I like to use, I'm going to pull out one of my tracks here called So High. I'm going to take off the loop, put this on solo. So this is one of my tracks called So High, and I want to show you how I EQ a beat when an artist comes and wants to record vocals and I don't have the stems for that beat. So that's usually what happens. Someone bought a beat off BeatStars, they come to your studio, they want to lay vocals on it, you only have that MP3 beat. How can you make it the best so that the lyrics blend well into the song and you don't have any issues, right? So this is my track right here. Select the section. This right here, that'll loop, and let's bring out our EQ 8s. And so what I like to do is I like the vocals to be in the middle, so I like to take the instrumental and kind of lower the frequencies of whatever is in mono, and boost up the stereo so that the vocals can fit into that pocket right there in the mono section of your signal, right? If that makes any sense. So an easy way to do it is to have your EQ, set it to mid sides, and then what we're gonna do on the mono track is right around here usually is where your vocals will lay, right? So that number 3, I'm gonna lower it a little bit, and I'm gonna lower the Q so I can get a nice little range. And then on the side, on the stereo part of the signal, I'm gonna raise that up so it kind of compensates, right? So the same thing here, find the same point, raise it, and try to do it as symmetrical as you can right there. So this, so you can hear a difference. You can hear that the instrumental is a little bit more wide and has a little bit less punch, but this is perfect for being able to record vocals, and those vocals are going to fit into that pocket. Now then, the best thing is once you have the vocals down, make sure to find out what range these frequencies of his voice is and apply that to this EQ so that you can cut out the right sections so that the vocals kind of fit in. So that's a cool thing that I like to do, that I do pretty much every time. And again, when it comes to EQing, really trust your ears, because If you have the vocals, try it on and off. It might sound better with the beat filtered out that way, or it might not, and in that case, it's not a big deal. You don't have to do it all the time. It's not a rule. EQs, whenever it comes to EQing and mixing, there's no rules really. It all depends on your ears, and there's some techniques that you can learn, but you have to trust your ears and you have to trust your gut on what sounds good and what doesn't. And that was the EQ. So let's go through a little bit some of the presets that they might have. Let's see. So there's some like floor toms, hi-hat boost. Let's see if this one works. So this is actually using the channel EQ. We're not going to use this one. Let's see, key bright, key kick. All right, so this is an EQ for the kick. You'll usually put this directly on the kick, and you'll see it gets a loud little, nice little thump. I like to go through all of these depending on what I'm doing and just test them out. So if I'm recording an electric guitar, let's go back to our first sample. Let's loop this section. And let's pull out our electric guitar EQ and see how it sounds. Where was it? Kick, blah, 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 blah. Funky electric guitar. Let's check it out. Let's try another one. Gentle vintage is pretty cool. Electric guitar 2. This one, no. So then you just go through that and kind of check out everything and see how it goes. All right, also one important section here in the EQ is this little triangle here is going to allow you to bring up the big screen and you can see some really cool stuff. So let's pull this up, and this is how it's going to look. So you have much more visual on your graph, and also you can fine tune every single one of these a little more precisely. Now another cool part is if you right click on the EQ8, you can find the oversampling mode. Now this is gonna, as it says, is gonna oversample, and it's gonna use a little bit more of your CPU, but it's gonna make the EQ sound a little bit more precise and sound a little bit more bright. So let's check it out right here. Now let's try it without the oversampling. So you can see it's a little bit more precise. That's all you need to know about the EQ8. So if you guys know any other tricks that you use the EQ8 for, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to check it out. It's a plugin that I use on every single track, and we all pretty much use it as much as we can because it's just so good and so useful. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Much love from Hawaii, and peace out.